Weekend wrap up with the Gahanna Gaming Group. Hi everybody. This is the weekend wrap up, coming a day too late because I just keep working on stuff and trying to make things better, and it's taken me a while. I'll get on into that at the end of the video when I talk a little bit about the state of the channel and the state of the group, just real quick. For those of you who have come to look at the definitions that we're going to talk about today, which are we're going to talk about rule set and define a couple of things that come along with how we use rule set and our jargon and our breakdowns and in our lexicon. And we'll talk about that in a second. First thing we're going to do, and I'll just check the timestamps for that. First thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the weekend wrap up. We got together on last Friday, Saturday, and Monday. It was our third Saturday at Bubbly Food Hall, and we'll be doing the two meetups in Bubbly. We're going to try to be do those as every month if we can from here on out. It may not always be the first and third. That's going to be our goal. Hopefully Bubbly will work with us to give us priority, but it won't always work out that way. So between the 3 nights, we had over 60 attendees, like 25, I think, on Friday, around 25 on Saturday, and it looked like we had at least 10 on Monday night. I wasn't able to get there, but it looked like we had. We've been staying heady between. We've been staying between 10 and 15 on Mondays, which is great. So that's probably it for weekend wrap up. Oh wait, no, let's talk about the games that we played. So the ones for sure that I know, and I didn't see what was played on Monday. So anybody who was at Monday, want to put those in the comments below, that would be great. Thank you. Here are the games that were taught this weekend that I know of. So Raptor, Priala, Harmonies, Gizmos, Flamecraft, Juicy Fruits, Space Park, Power Grid, Sagrada, Far Away, Dice Miner, Honey Buzz, Can't Stop, Sea Salt and Paper, Fantasy Realms, Raccoon Tycoons, Roja, tons of kids games and standard card games like Hand and Foot and Spite and Malice. So, as always, lots of players playing and learning lots of games over a 3 out of 4 day period. This coming week, we will just have our Friday and Monday meetings. The week after that, we'll have Friday and Mondays. And our Saturday should be first Saturday at Bubbly. However, I won't be there. I'm going to be at Gen Con for Saturday and Sunday, so I'm going to miss those and probably that Monday too. So we do have some things lined up, and I will get to those next week. We'll talk about that next week. It's exciting for people who might love some 1v1, some PvP, some TCGing, and we'll get to that next week. Now, let's talk about this week's lexicon. We're going to talk about rule set. So before we even get in to actually define it, let's just look at what a rule set is. So when you get a game, they typically come with a book. They might have a little, like a playthrough on a QR code or a fancy, let me turn this lighting down a little bit. It might have a fancy, like, learn to play video that you can go to on a QR, or something in Dized, but almost everybody will have a rule book as well, and I highly suggest you always have a written rule book in your games. Publishers, please and thank you. So what can you typically find in a rule book? There's usually like a thematic introduction, a list of components. Please, publishers, always put a list of your components in your rule book. You'll have like the goal of the game. If there's optional game modes or variants, typically those will also be in the back. Then you have the setup, which I try to combine with the storage solution and the total hobby system that I will eventually will do a series on those too, as I get to more established into the channel. And then you have, you know, what do you do on your turn? What are the phases? What does a round look like? What are your actions? What are the mechanics in this game that you need to keep in mind? What are the mechanisms of the game that you have, the gameplay that you actually have to move and keep track of? And then you'll have, and this particular game is very rule set heavy, which I would call complicated. You'll also have like edge cases. Like as you're going through the rule book, you'll see these little boxes and little reminders or remember and stuff, and a lot of time that's edge cases, and I'll talk about what an edge case here is in a second. And you'll have your in-game trigger. You'll have your scoring. How do you score? And all of that those are all things that you need to keep in mind as what is a rule set in a game. There's the technical definition that I found online that we could use. Most of the time when you look a lot of this stuff up, it'll give you like a video game definition. And much of tabletop gaming steals a lot of its definitions for its lexicon, its jargon from video games. Which that's just the way it goes. Even board games were first, but video games are bigger and have been bigger and probably will continue to be bigger just because of logistics reasons. It's a lot easier to download a huge game that gives you thousands of hours of playing time than it is to ship a 12-pound box and forces you to learn the rules yourself, whereas a video game just kind of takes you through a tutorial. So there's tons of reasons about video games. That's a whole different video. But tabletop gaming does borrow a lot of it from it, and I'll steal even with the Gahanna Gaming Group's lexicon, how our jargon, the words that we use, the definitions that we use, the terms that we use. A lot of it is taken from the video game industry, as well as some other places. So there are a couple of things when you talk about rule sets. There are a couple words that will come up all the time, and one of them you heard me say, edge case. So an edge case in a rule system, the idea is a rule set. The idea is to give you everything that you need to know to play the game. Like what are the rules for this game? Well, sometimes, and the more complicated, the opposite of complicated for how we use complicated at Gahanna Gaming Group, how I will use it, the opposite would be streamlined. So a lot of rules, like you just saw, I just showed you the rule book for Septima. And I would consider it a very rule set heavy or complicated game. And the more complicated you get, the more edge cases you get, which is to say, sometimes two rules may disagree. And in that case, the more complicated a rule is, the longer a game's been around, like lifestyle games, games that are they just keep adding, like TCGs or 40K, where they just keep adding new keywords or new rules, new components, where they just keep adding to it year after year after year, sometimes multiple times a year, 2, 3, 4 times a year, they might add a new expansion or a new set or a new something that adds more rules. It just gives you the opportunity for more edge cases. So it's no longer as elegant a system. It's not as streamlined a rule system. they have to come up. Sometimes they'll have errata where they'll go and say, oh no, we need to reword this card, or we need to rework this rule, because there's more edge cases now than there are core rules in the game. So that edge cases make it really difficult to remember all of the rules. And the more edge cases a game has, the less streamlined it is, and more difficult it is to remember what all the rules are. People who have great memories love those kind of rule sets. They love that super complicated, tons of edge cases, because then they can use that to their advantage. You have like an adaptive memory, and you can remember everything. Think of people who could become lawyers and doctors. They can remember all that information. Great memories, and they can manipulate the rules, because as long as they have to stay inside it, they can game that system to have an advantage. And so just because I say something's complicated doesn't mean it's bad. You know, some people love complicated. They like to game the system. They like to game the rules. As long as they're inside the rules, then they're fine. On the other end is a streamlined game. And I'll talk about that in a second, why it's different. But there's another term I want to talk about when it comes to rule sets, and that's the golden rule. You'll hear that a lot in gaming. So basically, in gaming, you're going to have this core rule set, this base set of rules, or your core rules. And then you'll have special powers, or abilities, or cards, or any way that something within the mechanistic part of the game happens, or says, do this, you do that instead. And that's the golden rule. The golden rule is anytime the game tells you to break the rules, you're okay to break the rules. The card is more important than the base. Your character's special ability takes precedent over the core rules, that kind of thing. So anytime you hear a golden rule when talking about rule set, that's what it's talking about. Now let's talk about our jargon, our terminology. Complicated versus streamlined. So when we do a breakdown of a game, when I do a breakdown of a game, I will put it somewhere in this continuum, somewhere between complicated and streamlined. And I like to do this because some people love complicated rules. Like I've said, they find ways to exploit them. Some people do not. People say who have dopaminergic system atypicalities, right? Where they might struggle with their working memory. Then the more streamlined a game is, usually the better it is for them. And I know that because this is me. I'm ADHD, and I need streamlined. Now, are there mitigating factors? Yes. I can handle more complicated if I love the theme. If I really enjoyed the puzzle. I'll get into all of those reasons why there is a ton of ways that maybe it doesn't have to always be streamlined for me to love it, the rule set. Okay. And likewise, like the other people who love to exploit rules, they're going to get advantages from complicated. Their brain likes complicated. They like to hold as much information in their head as possible because they can, baby. You know, Dr. House, MD, would probably enjoy a complicated game. So that's pretty much, I think, a decent start, anyways, for talking about rule sets and some of the terms that we would use at the Gahanna Gaming Group, just in general. Great. Now let's talk a little bit about the state of the channel and the group. So, the channels, we've got our goal of 1,000 subs. Once we hit there, we're going to do a little giveaway or some kind of surprise or something. I haven't completely decided yet, but if anyone has any suggestions, let me know. The simple thing to do is a giveaway, right? But maybe we want to do something bigger than that. I don't know. We're currently at 48, more than last week. Still a long way to go. That's fine. I have been spending a lot of my time working on the layout of it, like thumbnails, stuff. What do we want our look to be? I haven't loved anything that I've tried. I'll keep working. If anyone sees a thumbnail that they like, go, hey, what happened to that one? I kind of liked it. It was interesting. It made me wonder what was in there. Things like that. I'm really trying to focus on that for right now. I'll get to the editing here after I'm comfortable with what like style we want to go with. And, you know, I'm doing other things like working on what videos are we gonna do? How are we gonna do them? When are we gonna have other people besides me soon, I hope? When are we gonna start doing live streams of games soon, I hope? I do have, getting used to the software and how to, mostly right now I want to focus on how to handle like a live setup, so because I really want to get to live streaming the teaches on a Friday night. I think that would be fantastic. Some other things we're looking at doing, like group wise, I I'm looking at starting maybe a Tuesday night somewhere. We just started our second Saturday, or third Saturday, our second bubbly meetup. So maybe we start somewhere like once a month on a Tuesday, just see if we can, how that goes. Go from there. I'd like to look at maybe doing a workshop, like an educational workshop. The first one I talked about would be for social deduction. I'd like to do that soon. Does anyone want to do more events, like more designer playtesting nights? Does anyone want to do more TCGs? Things like that, you know? So RPG campaigns or RPG one-shots. So let me know. Let me know in the comments below, or grab me in an event and say, hey, can we maybe think about doing this? You know, or hit us up on Discord. Links for our Facebook group and Discord will be in the descriptions. So what do you think? What would be helpful to you? I know the things that I like to do. We're going to maintain this as an education first, which is why I do the breakdowns that I do. I try to do it in an unbiased way. Once again, I don't really care if other people like games, so I don't want to make it look like I think you should care either. Like, why am I telling you what games I love? You know, I don't think that helps you. But I do think the breakdowns, like in how complicated or streamlined a rule set is, or how complex or simple the gameplay is, or if it's tactical or strategic heavy, which one, or is it a nice balance? Like, those things to me are much more indicative of whether or not I'm going to enjoy a game. And that goes a long way for me to decide, do I want to spend time learning and playing this game? Do I want to spend money buying this game? I think the way we break it down is a fantastic tool. And for me, it works better than somebody else's opinion, or a BGG's weight or score out of 10. I don't, those things have very little meaning to me. They're just super arbitrary. This is much less subjective and much more objective, much more unbiased. This is a much more unbiased tool. And once we get it, you know, everything out, and I find a good way to get this information to you, how I use these tools when I decide, do I want a game? Is a game going to be right for me? All of those things. You know, hopefully that you find it as a useful tool too. I need to learn. I need to get better at delivering the information to you through this channel, and maybe some other ways like a newsletter, things like that. But regardless, it's about it. I don't have anything else I really want to say. I'm trying to keep these shorter. They've been a half hour each. I'd like to get them down to 20 minutes. Once we edit, I think we will get it down there. But that's pretty much it. That was our weekend wind up and our rule set lexicon video for the week. So I'll be back Thursday for the weekend wind up, telling you what's coming up this weekend. All right. Thanks a lot. Have a good one. Peace.